Recording in progress.
Yay! So I am so excited today to get to join one of my friends growing up, actually. This is so fun to get to reconnect, and I'm so grateful for social media that keeps us in contact. Jamie is someone that I grew up with. We did soccer together. We went to the same schools, and she's just an incredible human being that I've always admired. I've loved her perspective, her mindset, her ability to really just how she looks at things. And she's always been so kind and generous to with any conversation that we've ever had. And I've just really appreciated her appreciation of honoring where she's at in her journey and this self-acceptance that is something that, gosh, has taken me years to cultivate myself, and just being able to witness that. And Jamie has been so beautiful. And so I kind of wanted to dive in today and have a conversation and just understand what got you to that point and what gets you to that point, and how do you approach life in a way that really works for you to have it be what really sets you up for success, within yourself and your life. And so Jamie's a doggy mommy, and I love that. There's a soul sister there. And she's been a business owner, entrepreneur for, gosh, over 17 years that she built from the ground up and ran with her now ex-husband that we'll kind of dive into. That's part of her journey. And so she's going through a transition time right now where she's had a lot of changes. The last couple of years, I think we've all gone through some massive changes. And I think divorce is one of those things that unfortunately quite a few people have experienced in the last couple of years. And before that, but I think that this also has just made things a little bit more intense around some areas. And so you're in this space of now redefining yourself, your life, your career, everything. And it's just a new opportunity. And I've just loved seeing the progress of where you're at. Not that it needs to be any different or, that there's any better or worse, but just I've really appreciated seeing how you've gone through that. And so I thought that could bring some help and hope to my listeners and clients and people, whoever wants to join in on this conversation and listen to. So thank you so much for being here, Jamie. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a new experience for me, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Jamie told me this is her first time on Zoom too. So welcome. Now you can consider yourself a Zoom expert after this, right?
How it goes, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I love it. So I kind of want to dive back into where things really started for you. We kind of had a conversation a little bit before the other day. This is really not scripted. We don't have anything really planned out. I just want to see kind of where this goes, and what comes up is perfect. And so we just kind of follow that. But I really love, I want to dive into part of your journey that really got you to where you are was your health and fitness journey. Mm-hmm. And so I would love if you could kind of just what prompted that change and what got you started in that new space of, really focusing on your health and wellness. You started with CrossFit, and, what got you to that point?
Yeah. So it was probably like 10 years ago or so. I was pretty overweight. I was over 300 pounds. And the thing that made me change, and I think everyone has something in their life that's like, nope, that's not going to happen. So I don't have kids, and I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, and they're pretty much my kids.
They're adorable too.
Other than my fur babies. But anyways, one day they were just being kids, but they were running around, and I think they were playing hide and seek or something. And one of them, I opened the door to find them, and one of my nephews says, "Oh, it's a big scary monster," or something. And that hit me like, no, I don't want to be
like, I'm not scary.
They're just being kids, But that point I was like, no, I will not be that. And I've always been a very positive person. I have never talked negatively about myself. I don't know where I learned that, but that has helped me so much through everything, because what you feed your mind, especially what you're saying to yourself, is very powerful. So anyways, at that point, CrossFit was starting to become a big thing. And my brother had been living in Seattle at the time. He came home and he was ripped. And I was like, what the heck have you been doing? And he's always been physically active and whatnot. And I was like, what have you been doing? And he's like, CrossFit. And so I looked into it, and you ever like seen CrossFit, you see these athletes that are like just ripped and like, I can't do that. And I asked my brother, I said, could I do that? Knowing like he's probably going to say no, but he said yes. And I was like, what? I could do that? And he was kind of explaining some gyms are different. Some are more competitive. Others are more like family friendly. So I'm like, I'm going to go try it. So I go to CrossFit and it was so uncomfortable for me because I had to show my weaknesses. I had to show that I couldn't do sit-ups, that I couldn't run, that I couldn't do push-ups, all these things that they do. But I found in that community of people, all these people that started cheering for me. And I was like, what? Those people are paying attention to me. Here I am. I can't even do a sit-up, you know, like it was a very vulnerable place. I cried a lot, like going home because it was so uncomfortable. But that like seriously changed my life. Going outside of my comfort zone and like showing where I struggle. And I had all these people that were cheering me on that I didn't think that I could ever belong to. So like the whole community part of it was amazing, but I learned so much. I learned that I could do things. I learned that people can accept me wherever I'm standing. And that like changed my life. I ended up losing around 160 pounds.
That's huge.
Yeah, a lot. And I never thought that I would, you know, when you weigh that much, there's so much like, it's a big task in front of you. And it's like, am I ever going to make it? A lot of it's like self-belief, like, and visualization of how is it going to be when I am to where I want to be. But that was life-changing because I had to show my weakness. And through my divorce and everything I've went through, it's like, it's okay to show where you're struggling, where you're weak. It's okay to ask for help because you'll find support. You'll find people that know how to help you through it. But yeah, taking care of myself has helped me tremendously through all sorts of struggles. It's taught me a lot, you know, doing hard things in the gym. Hard is different for everybody, wherever you're at. When you push yourself physically, it teaches you that, oh, look, that was hard, because everyone has these voices in their head that are like, stop, it's too hard, this is not fun, stop. Like, but when you like conquer those voices, you gain like confidence and knowing that you can do hard things. And for like doing physical hard stuff has really taught me a lot, and it can be with anything, like any kind of struggle. You just know that you can do it, and you get on the other side and you're a little bit stronger, and you just keep adding it. And when you do things that are out of your comfort zone, you gain courage, you gain all sorts of things that help you through any kind of hard things. So
yeah. Well, and I'm curious too, because like CrossFit's really intense, you know, it can be very extreme, especially going from like not really being so physically active to now you're like an athlete, you know, like a pro athlete. So how was that transition for you to start moving?
Yeah, pretty much you just do what you can do, and you push yourself a little bit harder, start where you are, and you just do what you can do. You modify things. Like there's so many modifications that can make you stronger. And like, I went from not being able to do anything. I was doing like unassisted pull-ups. Like that's not something that a lot of women ever can do. I was really strong. I was like lifting heavier weights over my head and squatting with it, overhead squats. Like I was so strong. And it was, a lot of it is like, I surrounded myself with people that I wanted to be like, that had like the same, they took care of themselves, they exercised, they had a passion for it. So I surrounded myself with people that I wanted to be like. And then, yeah, so like who you surround yourself with, what you're saying to yourself, even though it's hard. And I would drive home crying a lot of times at first. I was like, I can do it. I can do it. And I'd visualize myself being like the people that I wanted to be like. And eventually I like turn around, and it's like step by step, you don't feel like anything's changing. And then one day you turn around and you're like, what? How did I get here? Like, I still look at that journey and I'm like, how did I do that? Because it's just so like, you just make a good choice after, you know, just one little thing after another. And all of a sudden it adds up to this big picture. Yeah. So,
which is fascinating to me because I love the concept and principle. Like we've heard that phrase, you become like the top 5 people that you hang out around. And I think that's why it's imperative. And we hear, surround yourself with people you want to become and people that you want. And what's fascinating is with the scientific research and different things, we have what's called mirror neurons. And I just am so fascinated with these because as babies, we're born with mirror neurons. We still have them our whole life, but these mirror neurons are literally about survival of how do we come into a world that is right now, how do we survive right now? And we have these mirror neurons that allow us to literally mirror our parents, mirror the people around us in order to survive and thrive in the space that we are. And so what is interesting is being able to put yourself in that situation where you then can literally start to mirror, this is what I want to become, this is what I want to experience. And then it literally starts happening as you take those action steps. So how was that for you? Like, did CrossFit provide the visual of here's what you can become because they had people that already were progressed into that point? Or like, how did they help you develop that vision for yourself of what you could become?
well, part of it was like, I knew I didn't like where I was. So I'm like, I don't want to feel like this. I want to feel like this. So, but as like your body can teach you so much about, what you're capable of. And then I had people cheering me on that were who I wanted to like mirror. I wanted to have a better body. I wanted to be able to run. I wanted to be able to do anything that I wanted to do because I started not being able to do anything. But having like a support group that like cheered for me. One thing I wanted to mention, which has been a huge thing for me, is I've always been positive. I don't talk bad about myself, and I think a lot of women, especially when it comes to compliments, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you pay somebody a compliment, a lot of times they're like, oh, ha, 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 or they like make a joke out of it. It's kind of like sarcastic. All that's doing is like pushing away love. And in order to feel good about yourself, you've got to accept love, and it teaches you to love yourself. So I had a mentor a long time ago. It was probably about when I started CrossFit, and this seriously changed. It helped like change my life. It helped how I felt about myself. And if you feel better about yourself, you're more likely to go out of your comfort zone, whatnot. But this is a really easy thing that helps change. So he must have seen in me that I was that person that, if somebody paid me a compliment, I would say something like, oh, ha, 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 and I'd push it off. I would never accept it. And he said, all you need to do is say thank you. You don't need to say thank you and then make an excuse of why they are saying that. So like CrossFit, what I was doing at first is, if they'd say, you're doing awesome, they were trying to support me. What I would say in my mind is it because they see me struggling? Is it because they feel bad for me? Like I was like thinking that type of stuff. And so when that mentor told me to do that, just say thank you. You don't have to say anything else. It taught me to accept love from myself, from other people. And so, at CrossFit or anywhere else, I started just saying thank you. And it started soaking into me that I was like good enough where I'm standing. I don't know. It was a huge thing to even just start saying thank you because we're very critical of ourselves. And it's easy to be like, oh, they're being nice to me because of this, like all these negative things. But that has like really helped me learn how to love myself, is accepting love from other people. It helps in all areas of your life when you decide to have other people love on you, because it's so easy to like, no, you don't need to pay me a compliment. It's easy to say thank you and just drop it there. And, you don't have to explain why they would say thank you, anyway.
I love that you brought that up because that's something that I work a lot with coaching. I have a throat drop because I still, it's kind of a little awkward here in speaking sometimes. Still post pandemic things, that infinite love and gratitude, right? So, but I love that you brought this up because often it's so interesting how as a culture and a society, and especially as women, it's like we feel like we have to validate or justify why that is, why that compliment, or why it doesn't fit, or why it doesn't work, or no, I need to get my hair done, or it's not, it's grown out too much, or it's not the right color, or whatever, whatever that is, that we deflect that we almost have to justify as to why we can't accept that. And there's so much power in just receiving, like you said. It really comes down to love. And this is something I love sharing and teaching with people, that it's not necessarily about the compliment. It's about when someone feels love for someone else, or they feel good feelings and good things for someone else, they're trying to express it in the way that makes sense to them and to us in a world. Right. And so those come through words, those come through compliments, that comes through however that looks. It's a lot of times with women, it tends to be compliments, words of affirmation, or different things. But that love comes from the heavens, right? It comes from the universe. It comes from that source of oneness that we are. It comes from the love that we are. And so they're filtering that through. So when I share for people to start saying thank you, it's really about recognizing that it's really that love that they're connecting to. So it's not about the compliment, even though sometimes it can be, and to accept that is empowering as well. Because like, it's okay to accept I am where I am, and someone finds that great, they find that beautiful, they want to share that. I can receive that love, even if I don't necessarily love where I'm at, or what I look like, or what I feel like in the moment, but I can receive that love from that person, because you're so generous. You've always been generous in your compliments and your love to other people and cheerleading other people. I remember that even from years ago from playing soccer. It's been so long ago. Yeah. But I remember that, of just how admired I was of just your cheerleading of everybody, cheering people on no matter what the circumstance was and how difficult or challenging it was. And I also admired your ability to just dive right in, like as a defender or whatever, of going through for that ball. And I think I was a lot more hesitant because I had glasses and I got smashed one time. So I was like, they're coming up at me, and wasn't really that, go at it. And yet I was always so impressed by that. And so I'm curious though, with CrossFit and with any physical activity, because whether this isn't like a promotional necessarily for CrossFit, this is your experience, and it's so perfect and profound for you that you found in that, which a lot of people do when they start going to any kind of program, whether that's, and now there's so much online, even through Zoom and different groups that you can join and still connect with a community. So how did you balance out with pushing yourself, pushing past your limitations, so that you knew that your mind was in control of your body, and yet still honoring what your body was able to do? Because I have a lot of people, that struggle with autoimmune issues and challenges and stuff. So how do you balance that point of pushing, but yet honoring also, and resting and recovering and making sure you're taking care of where you're at?
I think most of it is just kind of accepting where you're at, and saying, it's okay that I can't do this, but I can do this. I would always focus on things that I could do, instead of like, because we can always find a ton of things that we can't do, that we want to do, that we can't do. But I would focus on what I could do, or what I couldn't do yesterday, but now I can today. It is hard when you can't do certain things, but there's a lot of things you can still do. Like if it's, I don't know, it's hard to even just get up and walk sometimes. Sometimes it's just, parking at the end of the parking lot and walking in and saying, this is what my body can do. And I'm going to, park a stall down and walk farther. Just doing what you can do and being okay with the limitations, and finding other areas that you can push yourself a little harder. If it's physical, and physical is hard for you to do, you can start doing something that, pushes your mind farther in different areas, instead of having it being so physical. There's a lot of things, even if it's just like making your bed. There's so many like little habits that people don't want to do, that you can do, that kind of gives you some of the same feelings of physical, physically being active. But
I love that. And how is that for you with, like, because I think it's so important when you start taking action and doing things and seeing those successes and those wins. Like there's setbacks because the physical limitations and what you're not able to do yet, until you are, because practicing it, like, the pull-ups and different things that you were able to do unassisted, that it took practice and it took time and it took doing that. So how was that for you, as far as like with your mindset or your beliefs about yourself and different things as you did start to achieve those wins? What did that do for you?
It kind of put it like every little win that I had, I was like, look, I can do this. Look, I can do this. Things that I never thought I could do. And they were like simple, like a sit up. To me, that was a big win to be able to just do a full sit up, and kind of gives you a lot of like freedom, a lot more ambition to go for it, because you're starting to feel like the things that you've wanted to have, like, I don't know. It's, I put together, like, it's not really a vision board, but it's a big poster board that I have a lot of pictures of me doing, like my first box jump. I was like, when you're really overweight, you kind of forget how to do certain things, like jumping. You don't jump when you're overweight. And I remember the first time I jumped, it was maybe like a 5-inch like thing where I jumped up onto like a 5-inch thing. And I was like, what? I just freaking jumped. And then that day I went from jumping, part of it's like your mind saying, you can't do that. You can't do that. But I went from jumping on a like 5-inch ledge to a 20-inch box on the same day.
Wow.
That's like what having
that's
like
a huge gain.
Yeah, it's like, look, I had that little win. I just jumped from the floor to the 5-inch box or whatever it was. It was not very big, but I tasted what that felt like to even jump. And then I did the next level and the next level. And so when you do things that you prove to yourself that you can do it, and it's like aha, I can do that. So I can do this something else, and it can apply to anything. It can apply to any kind of struggle that you're up against. Is like, you just put yourself out and do things that you're not comfortable doing, and you prove to yourself, look, I just did that. And so I have it in my gym downstairs. I have a big picture of all these things that I never thought I would do. And they're all physical, because my body has taught me a lot of like, look, I can do that. I remember how it feels to not be able to do a box jump. So I have a picture proving to me, when I think I can't do anything, I can look at that and be like, look, I jumped on that. And I remember I did that all on the same day as not being able to jump to being able to jump. So I have like, I really like quotes. I have quotes, like, I don't know if you can see all my pictures up here.
I love it.
I'd have quotes.
I love looking at your doggy.
Yeah, I have quotes. But yeah, that board of me proving to myself that I can do hard things. I really like looking at it. It's a reminder that it doesn't have to be physical. It can be anything that you are not sure you can do. Yeah, so
there's that.
Yeah.
And I love, because our body really is a great teacher. It's a great tool that we have, but it's what we have to experience life here. And so what a beautiful teacher to guide us through, where we can learn that we can do those things, and that overcoming and I love that you have that going back to what you have overcome, because I think it's so easy for the brain to focus on what's triggered or charged or the resistance, right? And so it's constantly focused on the resistance, and that's really what unless we train it and teach it, but even then it still tends to go to resistance. And so we consciously bring our mind to what we want to intentionally focus on. So having those examples of things to remind it of when you're in resistance, like, no, wait a second, like we can do these hard things, because we didn't think that we could do this, but we could do this. And I think there's something about that physical body being able to actually experience something challenging, because you've got hormones, you've got the feel good hormones, and there is an exercise high that you get of all the dopamine and the oxytocin, all those feel good things. And then you have the affirming from the oxytocin from your community of cheerleading and different things. So what was that like for you to finally start accepting those compliments? Like, what shifted in that way of you receiving that?
It happened pretty fast. I was quite amazed that, it was so simple to just say thank you and then move on with it. I didn't have to make any sarcastic remarks or whatever, but it happened pretty quickly of like, oh, I've just been bouncing off like love from people and support from people. And it happened pretty fast. But I do surround myself with positive people. So I wasn't hearing negative at the same time. And also myself, it's just like a rule of mine, not really a rule. I've never really struggled with like of course I can go down the rabbit hole of like, what don't I like about myself? But I always focus
Right.
on what I like about myself. I haven't ever had like the internal struggle of being mean to myself.
Which is huge, because I think
Yeah.
so many people do. And that's one of those things that I'm like, how, what is it that you cultivate, or what helps you cultivate that of continuing? And I think you just clearly, express that really it's your focus. It's where you focus, and not
Right.
allowing yourself to go to that rabbit hole and go, well, I can, but it's not really productive and it's not going to serve me. So what
Yeah,
I
a lot
would
of
like to
it's
focus
like,
on.
yeah, a lot of it is choice. So you can choose what the struggle is going to be like. So say like with my divorce, I chose that I was not going to make it a negative thing. I chose to make it as good as I could, because you can make something horrible not be so horrible. And when you decide to make it horrible, you're just making it harder on yourself to go through it. So with anything that I've tackled, I've chose to look at a more positive side of it. What can be good about this? So like it's choice. And I know sometimes it's harder. I have this big sign in my bedroom that says there's always, always, always something to be thankful for. And like sometimes when I'm laying in my bed, I look over at that sign. Like I could be struggling or whatnot. And I'm like, there's always something. Sometimes it's, the sun, feeling the heat from the sun. Sometimes it's like simple things. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
big things. So I've always like been drawn to what is good. And that has saved me so many times out of like struggles that I went through. Is there's always good, and you can choose to focus on the negative or you can choose to focus on the positive. It's a choice. Everyone has those choices throughout their life. You want it better or you want it worse. It's kind of which way does your mind go, and you choose. You want it better. You want to go through this struggle as positively as you can. So that's
Yeah. I think we don't really get to choose our consequences, and yet we do have a choice in how we respond to them, and how we approach them. And I think what's really cool too is that ability. You can change that choice at any time if you notice that you're going down a path of negativity. And because it's not about like just positive thinking. I work with people that it's that doesn't fix or change everything. It really is that focus, and it's about choosing that consistently, and then accepting whatever you feel. And I've noticed, so even though like you had this really incredible positive attitude, and being able to focus on that, I've noticed there's not really a lot of resistance when it comes to experiencing, like, moving through, especially recently, like the divorce and different things, and seeing that you've allowed yourself to grieve and feel sad and to be where you are. And I think there's something magical that happens when you accept where you are, but then recognizing you have that mind that can choose and say, okay, I am where I am. It's okay where I am. And yet here's where I want to go from here. And here's how I want to approach it, so that regardless of the consequences, that you feel like you are able to influence it in a way that works better for you and for your mind and your heart and your soul evolution of, how do you want to approach life and learn and grow from that.
yeah.
So how has going from CrossFit and doing hard things, and you kind of already briefly mentioned that, how has that really shaped going through this divorce? What's your experience been like as because you built the business that
Mhm.
he was doing the work, you were running the whole business side of it, and then that's completely separated now, of where you're no longer involved in that. So what's that been like for you?
Yeah. So it's, just like you were saying, you can still grieve and you can still have these negative emotions and you can still feel them, but having the positive and accepting help and everything, it's been really weird because I've had like very sad, you know, feelings about the ending of my 20-year marriage, 17-year-old business. Like that's a big thing. And but at the same time, so I felt all that, but I've also felt this like completely overwhelming feeling of love and like positive. um it's still there. It's the positive is always there. And even though like the negative, they're not negative, they're feelings of grief. And if you don't feel them, they get like trapped inside of you. So you have to feel them, you have to process them. Those feelings teach you things. But when I found out I was getting divorced, when I got separated and whatnot, I decided to be open and to show of my struggle. And I'm not very good at asking for help and I need to be better, but this divorce has taught me it's okay to ask for help. So probably one of the first things I did was I told my neighbors. And I know my neighbors because I grew up in this home. I bought the home I grew up in. So I know some of the neighbors because they are still around here. But I decided, what? I want to be seen. I want to be seen so that I don't feel that I'm not seen. Because when you're going through a struggle and no one's aware of your struggle, it's a lonely place. So, I have my support group, my close friends, my parents, my sister and all that I talk to, about my problems, but I also wanted to be seen in a different way. So I reached out to my neighbors and I said, hey, I just want you to know that I'm going through a divorce. One, so that it wasn't like, oh, how's Justin doing? And I'd be like,
Right.
oh, I'm going through a divorce. So I'm like, people are going to find out, but I want to be seen. So I told my neighbors and they have been amazing. And that's like one reason I've like found love in this really hard time. So when you get divorced, you find certain things that come up that you're like, oh, I've never had to deal with this before. What do I do? And it's overwhelming. And like maybe a couple weeks after Justin left me, we had a big windstorm and I have a bunch of big trees and tons of branches fell off these trees. Normally me and Justin would have worked through that project and cleaned it up ourselves. But myself, I'm like, oh, I went outside and I just started crying because I'm like, it was overwhelming. Just like another thing on my plate that I had to deal with. And like we had a ton of branches break off. But my neighbors, they didn't have to call me. They didn't have to ask. They just showed up. They started like taking care of my trees and I went out and helped them. But being seen and being open to being seen in your struggle, just like I did with CrossFit, I decided, you know what, this is my struggle. My weight is my struggle. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to show them I can't do this. Same with asking, starting counseling. That has been very helpful for me with this trial because I didn't know how to deal with my thoughts, my feelings, all that comes with struggles. Counseling has been really good for me. That's another form of asking for help. So you don't have to isolate yourself. I think a lot of people do, and it just kind of makes the situation harder. Being seen it's okay. Everyone struggles. And I've also found that I also decided that divorce doesn't have to be full of shame. And a lot of people don't talk about divorce because I feel like a lot of people have shame about it. So I decided to be open about it. And I've shared portions of it, on my social media. And I have found a ton of people that are either going through divorce or that have been divorced. And in that, they understand me, so they've validated my feelings and whatnot. And so it's like, I've just learned to be open about my struggle. And I find love in that. So
I love that. And as far as like processing, because I was going to ask, what specifically have you implemented to help you process your feelings and emotions? So you've asked for help, you go to counseling, but what tools have you been able to really implement to help move those things through your body?
Well, it's still like keeping up with habits of taking care of myself and taking care of the things that I can control, because there's so much of this experience that I couldn't control. It wasn't my choice. I couldn't control it. So here I was in this position of, I can't do this, but I can do this. I can make my bed. I can exercise. I can read self-help books. I can do all these other things that take care of me and help me go into a different space that I've never been in. Also just like with my fitness thing is like, you can do hard things. It doesn't have to be physical, but I know I can put myself out there and I will survive and I will learn. And yeah, so a lot of it's just taking care of myself. Like it's really easy to fall in the rut of like not getting ready for the day. Not cleaning your house, all those things that make you feel good. It's really hard to be like, oh, I'm just gonna lay around and sit in my sadness. I feel my sadness, but I also do the things that make me feel better. Getting ready, cleaning my house, making sure my house is not a mess, eating good, hydrating, like all those types of things have helped me have a better experience going through a divorce.
I love that, which energetically, like there's emotions are energy emotion, right? So they're meant to actually move through. And it's so fascinating that when we have trauma, we have stuck, suppressed things where we're resisting the fight, flight, or freeze cycle, or where we're really just not wanting to feel that we literally want to stop moving. And there's something so powerful about taking the physical body and that expression, even the mind, and being able to actually move something. And it really just helps to create coherence and order in the brain and in the body. And it helps to be able to move those things through. So how would you, or what would you recommend for people that are in that space of not wanting to move and just kind of seeming that helpless or hopeless space, or going into, the circumstances and it's overwhelming? What helps you get to the point of taking some kind of movement and doing something that you can?
A lot of it is doing something small. My dad's always like given me these phrases, but he's like, you can't eat the whole elephant in one bite. So you have this big thing you're up against. And if you look at this big picture, same with like weight loss, like, it compares to that too. It's like I had 160 pounds to lose. How overwhelming is that to be like, I have that much weight to lose? When people complain about losing 10 pounds, and I had this much to lose. You just focus on a little bite at a time. And so if you feel like you can't, you're just in that space of you don't want to do anything, you want to just lay in bed, you don't, you say, okay, I'm going to get out of bed and make my bed. And if that's the only thing that I do today, when I return to my bed tonight, I will see that I made my bed and I did something. And I'm not the best at making my bed, but because I really like messy covers, but I've started implementing making my bed every single day. I get out of my bed, I make my bed, because when I come home or when I'm ready to go to bed, no matter how the day went, I have an organized bed. I did a task that made me feel better because now I walk into my room and it's clean, organized, whatever. So you just take little bites on those days where you just are overwhelmed with the pressures of life. And when you start taking little bites, you notice other things that are starting to improve from those little bites. Like I made my bed, took me a couple minutes, and I'm in the kitchen or whatever. Say I'm overwhelmed with my dishes. I put a couple dishes away. And so it's like you can take little teeny bites that help you feel better about just your day, because those things you can control. And I've always not forgotten myself, and I've shown up for myself with movement. Sometimes that looks like stretching for 5 minutes. Sometimes that's going outside for a walk, but I've always made it a priority to move my body in however way that is. The outdoors is amazing for how you can feel. Like sometimes it's like seriously going on a walk for 5 minutes. You will come home feeling much better after 5 minutes, or even just going and sitting on my deck. I know it's a little harder in the winter because it's not as enjoyable, but and we all have those voices like, don't do that, that's not fun.
We'll channel Wim Hof, right?
You go out there and you start walking in the fresh air, the sun. It can be snowing, it can be raining. The outdoors is like an amazing area to like lift your spirits. So
I love that. And I think that's something that you enrolled a couple of us, you put it out there that you were doing 75 hard again. You'd done it a couple times. And me and another friend jumped in on that. And what a gift that gave me. I had struggled with some seasonal stuff because of trauma through a season, and it just kind of carried on in that grief and different things. And so I had really struggled with clouds and all that. And what 75 hard taught me was just getting out regardless, rain, snow, sleet, it didn't matter. And I found it was just incredible, one, to be able to move the body, right? Because that immediately starts bringing in a coherent pattern and moving energy and shifting emotions and bringing the feel good chemicals. But then also, because the sun is still there even through the clouds. So you're still getting some vitamin D, still absorbing that and just connecting. I think there's something also about being in the energy of the elements and being in season with whatever season we are, because we have our comforts of our home that we kind of have lost touch in some ways of the seasons and cycles. And so to be out in it connecting, it really just brings that sense of oneness with the earth and nature, and it just brings such a peace. So I love that you got to experience that, and then also brought brought some support and clarity on the 75 hard, because holy cow, that's a tough program.
Yeah, it's an awesome program. I learned a ton about it. But yeah, like going out in the elements, that's another way, is like you're doing some things that's not easy to do, going on a walk and it's raining. Who likes to do that? Or it's snowing and it's freezing outside. But those were really one of my favorite times, when I like push myself to be like, okay, I got to go out there and walk in this blizzard. But seriously, I've been on blizzard walks and I'm the only one out there. You don't see anyone else out there walking. But it kind of empowers you too, to be like, look, I just did this. I did something that a lot of people don't want to do. I'm out here doing it. And putting you into like an uncomfortable thing, even though nothing bad's going to happen out there. You're just walking in a blizzard. But yeah, that is an amazing program. It teaches you where your weaknesses in your mind are, and teaches you how to be more productive throughout the day. But yeah,
I love that.
It is amazing.
So what are some of the gifts that, I think there's the contrast of everything. So whatever we go through, you've been really clear, choosing your perspective, choosing your outlook, choosing to focus on what is good, and noticing, and that self-care and self-love, which are so, so vital, I think, of going through anything, of just showing up for yourself. And so what are some of the gifts that, going through divorce or going through the experiences that you have in the weight loss journey, what are the gifts that they've given you? What have you benefited from because of them?
There are a lot of gifts. I haven't really thought of a list. I don't know. I would never take my struggle of my weight and throw it away because it's not valuable. I found myself when I put myself out there to go to CrossFit. I really learned so much about myself that if I wouldn't have had that experience to go through the divorce and losing my business, if I wouldn't have had the weight loss, I wouldn't have been as strong to deal with the divorce. So really any struggle that you go through teaches you things that help you go through other things. It's really quite crazy. I've thought about when I got married when I was 20. I was young, a completely different person than I am now. If I would have been the person I was when I was 20 now, I would have been a complete disastrous emotional mess, because I wouldn't have ever learned how to take care of myself, how to, I just wouldn't have learned what I know now to go through what I'm going through now. I don't know. I was a lot more insecure about myself, but when I found myself, when I started to love myself, when I started to respect myself, all those things help with other different struggles. Yeah, it's crazy. I wouldn't ever give my trials away. And I'm sure, my divorce and losing my business is very recent. It's only been 6 months. But I know in the future, I'm going to look back at myself. And this is another thing I told myself. I want to go through this trial and be proud of how I dealt with it. I didn't want to but that's part of being positive. If you can look back and you say, I was as positive as I could have been during this situation, you become proud of yourself because you, I don't know. So that's one thing that I told myself, is I want to be proud of how I dealt with it. But yeah, I'm sure I will look back in a year or so, or, I'm still, the growth I've experienced, even just 6 months, is crazy. Just like how I think differently about things. Yeah. So trials are very good learning things. And I know I'll look back at this time in my life and be proud of how I handled it. And I'll be a different person, just like I was with my fitness thing. You come out of them a different person and hopefully a better person, but that's a choice in how you deal with it. So
Yeah, that learning, really applying the wisdom that you gain from it is really beautiful. And I know that gift and or gifts will come from this experience as well. And I know yesterday talking, just being able to really connect to throughout your marriage, learning that ability to love yourself and to recognize your own worth and your own value, and how that really, when you come into a space kind of, I won't say broken, because we all have experiences, we all have trauma, we all have things that make us us, where we really come back to finding ourselves and come home to ourselves, come home to the truth. And yet coming from a dysfunctional or into a dysfunctional or into a space where you're taking two people and then growing and learning together. And a lot of times what happens in relationships is we talk about that growing apart, and yet a lot of times it's just really growing differently or at different paces or different lessons and different things. And a lot of times if that isn't on the same page in terms of willing to adapt and going together, then it is so much more uncomfortable and painful. And that's where a lot of that pain and resistance comes from. And so having that awareness of knowing that, hey, I'm holding that space of knowing who I am, seeing him where he is, him moving on, all the kinds of different things but still holding that worth of knowing your own self and your own value, and saying, I'm going to hold to that and trust that and know that because you've earned that, you deserve, and it's who you are. It's just uncovering that truth. What do you see yourself moving forward? What is the future kind of, I know it's so unknown, but what does that look like for you moving forward as you kind of envision this person that you are?
So since I got married young, I was 20, I'm now 40. I've always had him with me, throughout everything. And I want to show myself that I can be independent. I can make money on my own. I can, come up with all these things, like my broken trees. Like I changed a light bulb in my truck. All those things that he normally would have taken care of, I'm learning that I can do it myself. I can handle things. Not that doesn't say that I don't value like relationships or anything, but I have become more empowered of being just an individual and being able to handle the things that I've never had to go through because he was always there. The things he would take care of, I'm learning either I can take care of them, I can ask for help. So I'm stepping into more of an empowered place because I've never had to do that, I guess, in the ways that I'm experiencing, I guess, when things break in the house, he would always take care of it. But I'm like, okay, my toilet's plugged. Okay, I guess I'm learning how to do that. I've looked at YouTube videos, but I found in those times where I'm like, I've never had to deal with this, it's kind of overwhelming to me. If I've done it, I'm like, sweet, I can do it. And it's just like another thing, just like the box jump.
Yeah.
You can do it. So I'm learning in different ways that I can do things that are overwhelming to me. So yeah, it's been empowering in a lot of ways. Same, like you prove to yourself that you can do something, you get empowered, and it makes you say to another child, I can do it. I did this, So I hope that I can prove to myself that I can do these things that I've been telling myself that I can't, because everyone can say that you can't do this or whatever, and you hear other people telling you can't do it. But yeah, I hope that I can be more just independently prove to myself that I can do it. Because I've never been in that space. I've always been married, and it is very overwhelming to all of a sudden not have that type of support. But it's been empowering to say, look, I just did that. I just changed my light bulb in my truck. Might have taken me 5 times longer, but I did it. So.
You did, and you totally are learning. I this is just such a beautiful, you can hear my dog. She's very angry that I closed the door and she's not able to get in.
I can't
Like,
hear her, but
okay, good. She gets louder and louder. I was like, I know, but you've got a few more minutes. And in fact, I might have to go let her in a second, but because she can hear me talking about her now. Anyway, I love that you are doing those hard things and you are learning that. And I think when you come from that space of empowerment, of realizing like you don't necessarily have to need anyone else, because you learn that independence on yourself, which is very empowering. And then it becomes more of a choice. It becomes a choice to connect and to choose into the relationships that really do benefit and serve you, and that recognize and help you value your worth as well. Not that you need them to do that, but it's more of that receiving, right, of that thank you, of like that compliment, of just being able to be in that space of like, yeah, thank you. I know my own value. I know my worth, and I appreciate that. And I can connect to that love. And so I love that you're finding yourself in a different way and going through, an experience that isn't so pleasant. Nobody wants to go through that or
Yeah.
experience that. And yet, here you are and get to redefine yourself. And I'm so excited for the things that get to come for you, because we've kind of talked through the world is wide open, and you have so many new possibilities of, what a gift that this also gives you, of opening up some other doors that maybe wouldn't have happened in this way or this quickly had that not happened. And so finding the gift from that, finding the plants or the beautiful flowers or whatnot from that. So if you were to leave today with some message from your heart of what you want to just continue sharing, or something that you feel would benefit, what is on your heart to leave everyone with?
The thing that comes up is to not forget about yourself. Especially, I don't have kids, but I can imagine how much harder it is to have kids and other distractions like that, where you put yourself aside, taking care of yourself. However that looks, but to not forget about yourself and to keep showing up for yourself. However that looks. So
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And I know that people are going to want to connect with you, because you also have an incredible journey that you've shared in the past, and where you come from, and where you are in the health and wellness industry, and also tapping into energy and just all things interested in how things work that way. And so who knows where you might be going, but I'm sure you're going to help serve and connect with a lot of people. So how do people find you?
So I have an Instagram and a Facebook page. It's called RX2 Fitness. So the number 2. So RX2 Fitness. You can find me on Facebook. There's a group page, and then Instagram, same handle. But I share just a lot of things that I've learned throughout my life on there. So
perfect. I love it. Well, I so appreciate you again. Thank you so much. And yeah, until next time, I'm just sending you so much love and just appreciate you.
Okay, you too.
Okay.
Okay, see ya.
Bye.